today. Okay, so everybody's recording the meeting that's preserved the educational efforts of the speakers, and it gives you an option, I guess, to leave if you wanted to leave. You know, you don't want to be recorded. But let me close out of this screen. Stop sharing that so you guys can see who's talking to you here. Okay, let's see. So yeah, good morning, everybody. Before I start, I always have to remember it's a virtual environment, so it's easy to get driving down the road, you know, and have it on your phone or something. And Jason Swell is good about reminding me to say something at the beginning to buckle up and phone down. We're recording it, you know, so you can watch it later on and that kind of stuff. I've got Steve DeWitt and Beth Neiman in the room with me today, so I'm masked up. If we ever get to where we're doing these in person again, that'll be interesting to see how we talk and hear each other. But for now, this the world we're living in. So let's see. Thanks to Travis Wagers, IT support, getting this thing set up. Welcome to this is January 2022 edition of the STP meeting. My name is Jacob Huber. I'll be moderating it again. And a few housekeeping notes that I mentioned earlier. Everybody's muted when you enter the meeting. Unmute if you want to talk. And chat box. We're recording the meeting. So to get us kicked off today, hopefully everybody's doing okay weather-wise. I think we're supposed to get some weather tomorrow and Friday. Steve said some snow coming in just on the I-64 corridor maybe. So people be careful driving to KBT conference if you're going to that. The first speaker on the agenda today, we'll go ahead and get started, is Mikhail Pelfrey again. We start with KYTC updates, and then we'll do some FHWA updates and go from there. So Mikhail is our director in the Division of Planning. He started in 2020, and he's a grad at UK. He lives in Lexington with his wife and boys. So Mikhail, let's see, you got any updates for the group this morning?
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you, like Jacob said, to the January 2020 SCP meeting. I'll keep my comments kind of brief this morning. I did want to hit on a couple of things. I don't know if everybody has read and seen the agenda, but on page 2, it does mention one of the retirements, and I wanted to call special attention to that. Steve Ross, our branch manager for the SPAC branch, is retiring at the end of this month. While Steve kind of stays behind the scenes on these meetings, his branch is instrumental in running the SCP meetings. So, Jacob works for Steve, so all these meetings are coordinated through Steve's branch. So I did want to call special attention to that and also thank him for his many contributions to not only the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, but also the Division of Planning. So Steve will be retiring at the end of the month. Outside of that, we do have a jam-packed agenda today. We're going to be hearing from FHWA on some safe systems, and Deputy Secretary Hancock here in about 30 minutes on the new IIJA bill. So I encourage everyone to pay special attention to not only, especially those two presentations, but all the presentations this morning. There will be plenty of guidance provided to all. And with that being said, I guess I will turn it back over to Jacob.
Okay, thanks, Mikhail. Yeah, and I'll give Steve a few minutes to talk here in a minute. Let me have Jason Blackburn. He was doing the assistant director for Shift, for that whole cycle. And so I invited him back if he has any updates. Jason's been with the department for over 20 years. And like I say, he was the assistant director, and he's still doing the District 10 planning supervisor role. So, Jason, you got any updates you wanted to give people on Shift or anything?
Well, if you can hear me, I'm going to say no. Everyone should be aware that the highway plan, the recommended highway plan, has out now. It's available to everyone. Hopefully, at some point this week, we will be putting our all the shift scores, making all that public and putting that on the website. Shift, it's a continual thing, and before you know it, it'll be time to start shift 2024. So just have to see what the future holds. It's going to be fun.
So what is this? Is this like a Bug's Life or something? What's your screen going on there? Is that a bug eye?
Yeah, so I have no ideas, and I'm on my like third new computer in the last month, and so I chose this background, and that's not the baldness. Okay, those reflections aren't coming off of my head.
It's
That's
a
the
halo.
lights in
It's
my
a halo.
office. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but oh well, it is what it is, Jacob. Heck, I just roll with the flow.
Hey, are we doing shape files for this shifts? One of the ads mentioned something about shape files. Do we update those things, or is that who does those?
It's a group effort, I'll say, but we should be able to, now that kind of shifts over with, we should be able to make kind of a master file for the projects that are in shift 2022 and get that out. That shouldn't be an issue.
Okay. Okay, well, that's quick, easy and quick. Let's see. So with that, thanks, Jason. Thanks, Mikhail, for updates. And then, like Mikhail mentioned, Steve Ross. Let me read Steve's bio here one more time. Steve wanted to say a few words to you guys. He's been with the cabinet for about 20 years or so, and he's been the branch manager. He helped bring me to division planning. So thanks, Steve, for that for sure. And then prior to KYTC, worked in Northeast Railroad Conrail for about 12 years. And these guys, a bachelor's of civil engineering from UK. And something that's kind of cool about Steve's license, he's a licensed PE in 6 states, lives in Lawrenceburg. His wife for 30 years, Lynette, and they've got one adult son, Roger, who's a musician in Nashville. And Steve is a musician, I know, with the Potholes. So, Steve, I turn it over to you if you'd like to say a few words to the group.
Yes, I would, Jacob. Thank you. And thanks for the great job you do setting up these STP meetings. We appreciate your comments. I appreciate Mikhail's words too, those kind words. We do have a really good agenda and a busy meeting, so I'll keep my comments brief too. But I just want to thank everyone for your friendship over the years. It's been great working with you all. Thank you for your professionalism, especially in these last couple of years with COVID and the lockdown and what we've had to do to work and communicate. I just hope we get a chance to cross paths in the future and stay in touch. And I just want to wish everybody the best. So thank you all, and I'll pass it back to Jacob.
Yeah, thanks, Steve, for that kind of goodbye message. We still got you for a couple more weeks, though, right?
I'll be here for a couple more weeks. Yes.
Okay, and let's see.
My last day will be the 31st.
Okay, and let's see, when you retire. So when you retire and live the retired life, let's say hypothetically, if you go to the consultant world, are you going to be back in the Potholes, or are you going to still rehearse with them? What are you going to do?
Well, I definitely want to stay in touch with the Potholes. So.
Okay. Yeah, I thought about playing a tribute video on here or something, if I can find one in the break, maybe.
Oh, that's dangerous.
Okay, so let's see. Yeah, thanks, Steve, for all you've done. I've only been up here a few years, but you've got a lot of good history with the cabinet, and I've picked his brain a few times. Just the history of the division is pretty fascinating, just how the division's changed over the years. So thanks for your guidance, Steve. Mentorship and that kind of stuff over the years. And best of luck with your retirement.
Thank you, Jacob.
Okay, let's see how we're looking on time. 9:10, we're right on schedule. Let's see, the next presenter is FHWA updates. And it was going to be safe systems or voting rights, something like that. But let me introduce Mr. Todd Jeter. And in November 19, he began serving as the division administrator for FHWA Kentucky Division, where he leads the federal aid highway program for the state and directs engineers, planners, realty, financial specialists, support personnel. And he works with KYTC, congressional reps, MPOs, local elected officials, resource agencies, and trying to carry out these US DOT transportation safety program goals. He's worked in Florida, South Carolina, Texas, Louisiana. So it's kind of neat to see his bio working all over the place to get to where he's at. And he's got a master's in business administration from the University of Tennessee. Excuse me. And he's got his master's of business from the University of Tennessee and a bachelor from Middle Tennessee State University in Finance and Economics. So with that, Mr. Jeter, I'll turn it over to you to kind of give some FHWA highlights.
Okay, thanks, Jacob. Good morning, everybody. I did want to talk to you a little bit this morning while I have this group together, introduce something to you, and again, just kind of an introduction to this topic that we will be discussing throughout the year. I realize that this isn't something that we've discussed before, and possibly in the future when you've had some time to digest it, I'd like to hear a little bit more about what your agency or what your group may have planned for this, and this is voting rights. I know this sounds unusual, but FHWA is treating the elections as events, and we really interested in working with our state and local entities to seeking to mitigate traffic and construction impacts on routes to the polls, and particularly in underserved areas. On March 7th of last year, the president signed an executive order to establish a policy to promote and defend the right to vote for all Americans who are entitled to participate in our election. And one important aspect of it was for the ability for voters to reach their polling places without significant or unexpected traffic delays. And the USDOT has identified 3 actions that we can take. The first one really involves transit, and FTA will probably be reaching out to KYTC and others later to talk about the transit. FHWA has been tasked with essentially 2 major initiatives in this. Is again working with entities to mitigate traffic, and as we were doing this, the first thing we wanted to look at was work zones and the impacts of work zones on elections, and kind of put it out there as kind of food for thought of what you can do to kind of plan ahead, to reduce the impacts of work zones on polling places, and kind of taking a look at that for the future. And that's why we wanted to again talk about this now. I know it's still 10 or 11 months away, but starting to make plans for it. And the second thing we wanted to work on was really that traffic analysis, and really look for some input to see if there's been any indication from past elections where there have been issues with traffic, with parking, anything that may hinder someone's ability to get to the polling places. We know, traffic volumes may be heavier than usual. Typical traffic patterns might be disrupted, and this may create additional and unexpected traffic delays around polling places. In addition to traffic delays, there may be disruptions to travel paths, sidewalks, parking. These may also impact access to polling places. FHWA does have some resources available on traffic analysis. Obviously, every state may have, hundreds, if not thousands of polling places, and we cannot, go across the country and do 30 or 40,000 sets of traffic analysis. But we do have certainly some resources and some information that we can share. And we are aware that there's going to be some guidance on use of variable message signs coming out shortly. And again, the purpose of why I wanted to talk about this today was again to just bring awareness to the subject, and that we will be reaching out later in the year as we get additional guidance and help with this. And like I said, I would like for folks to start thinking about this now. And we certainly here at FHWA, you know, we do have a commitment as part of the federal government to respond to this executive order. And I'd really be interested again in hearing, you know, any activities that KYTC or our local partners are undertaking in this. And again, today is just, again, putting the bug in everyone's ear. But again, please contact us and let us know if you have any questions, need any help, or anything along with that. And again, thank you for giving me a few minutes to speak with you.
Yeah, no problem, Mr. G. It's an interesting topic for, I guess, delivery and ITS type solutions. Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting message for the group. So if anybody has any comments or kind of questions on that regard, put them in the chat box. And I'm recording this. I'll send me an email. I can send it to Mr. Jeter as well if you don't already have his email. But yeah, I appreciate you giving us a few updates there. And it's nice to have a spot on the agenda for you guys to share what's on your minds too, so we can all be on the same page.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's see. With that being said, the next item on the agenda is this infrastructure bill. Some updates on that. We've got a working group at KYTC that has been working on that. And so Deputy Secretary Hancock will be presenting on this, and Susan Oatman is kind of heading up that working group. I believe she's going to be sharing the slides, as my understanding. She's the local public agency, statewide local public agency coordinator for KYTC. So let me read Deputy Secretary Hancock's intro here. It's a great honor to introduce Deputy Secretary Hancock. He's spent over 40 years in transportation. He's had distinguished titles like President of AASHTO and Secretary of our cabinet, Transportation Cabinet. And last time I read this big lengthy bio for him, he said, "Well, I wish you would have just said, here's Mike." So, here's Deputy Secretary Mike Hancock. Mike, can you hear me? Are you on the call?
Yes, sir. I'm here, Jacob. And can you hear me okay? You good?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
All right, great. And looks like Susan's got everything ready to go with the slides. Before I start this morning, I just want to wish everyone a good morning, and hope everyone's doing well. Jacob, you mentioned that at the outset, that these are tough times with COVID and all the things that we're into. And folks, I just appreciate everyone and your efforts, whether it's through vaccination or masking, social distancing, all the different things that are being required right now. We're seeing this all across the state, the spike in COVID cases, and very few of us don't know people individually who are suffering right now in some degree or another, and many of our family members have been infected. So just keep our guards up, continue to work hard, and we'll all get through this together. So just wanted to say that as an encouragement to everyone. Also, I will say this, being in the office today, originally I wasn't going to put this jacket on, but it is freezing cold in here. And with all the folks that this building is missing, many of us working telecommuting and so forth, I miss the warmth that we have with everyone in here. So one of these days, maybe we'll get back to some semblance of normal, and really looking forward to that. You see on the screen there, Susan's pulled up the federal transportation grants changes on the horizon. I wanted to talk just briefly today about the grant program that's part of the IIJA, which is the new Congressional Highway Authorization Act. It's the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And Todd Jeter and I were talking a couple of weeks ago about we'd just gotten used to the IIJA when USDOT began to refer to it as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. So we have a new acronym, BIL. Whatever you call it, whether it's the IIJA or the BIL, it's bringing changes to Kentucky. And I wanted to talk about a few of those today. One of the things that the IIJA did was it reauthorized all the federal programs that we've had going for the last half century or more. And those federal programs are formula federal aid funds that we build our 6-year highway plan around. Those are continuing with some new additions, and those new additions will be categories that we'll be learning about, frankly, in the months ahead, and figuring out exactly what the opportunities are there. But I wanted to spend a little bit of time today talking about another aspect of the IIJA, and that is the grant program and changes that are coming about there. When Congress reauthorized the previous Transportation Act, the FAST Act, with the new IIJA, they wanted to make some significant changes, and they wanted these are some of the rallying cries really that Congress was putting before us. They wanted to make existing system investments to make our existing system safer. They wanted to do that. They wanted to modernize our highway system, our transportation system, to make access more readily available for all users. And when I say all, that's underscored. That's pedestrians, bicyclists, multimodal, all users of our transportation system, to modernize it for them. They also wanted to accommodate new and emerging technologies for all modes. And so one of the challenges that we're given is to be innovators. Congress wanted to respect climate change. And there's a couple of aspects of that, sustainability and resiliency, that we've all heard a lot about. This Reauthorization Act brought all of that front and center, as Congress desired. And then the last thing that Congress and the administration are both underscoring with this bill, or this action, was to promote more equitable opportunities across all communities, something that in the planning arena we're very familiar with and understand all the bits and pieces of that. And so we know that KYTC is going to have to adjust to these prevailing winds. I mean, the US DOT, President Biden's team has made it obvious to us in conversations that those items I just ran through are going to be their way forward. That's the way that they're going to march the federal transportation program forward. So we just got to get with it, is the real message here. And the purpose of this presentation is to kind of bring you all up to speed on where we are with KYTC's efforts to better position ourselves for future success with the federal grant programs. So Susan, with that, yep. Up to now, KYTC's involvement with federal grant funding has been more technical in nature. Under the FAST Act, we largely dealt with highway grants, typically oriented toward the larger infrastructure grants. Also had the smaller Tiger build and raise grant processes that got lots of attention. Our grant program has been coordinated through the Division of Program Management under the watchful eyes of Ron Rigney and Susan Oatman for the last several years. And program management's responsibilities as we implemented the grants under the past processes were basically to align those notices of federal funding opportunity with our 6-year plan projects, hoping to free up other federal funds federal funds for use on other projects that were in the highway plan. So basically we viewed grants as sort of augmenting and supporting our 6-year highway plan. We also worked with consultants to develop and submit applications, many of those over the years, and we've had some significant success. I mean, some of our infra grant awards have been huge. And so as we've enjoyed the rewards of that grant effort, Susan and Ron and others have been busy monitoring the grants and working to close out those projects as time moves forward. So because we've done, reasonably well with the past grant opportunities and applications, we pretty well had developed ways to pick the right projects to suit the appetites of the federal grant program selection teams. As we look forward and realizing our confidence in the way things had been done, we're now seeing that we're going to have to change some things. So next slide. Okay, Susan. As I mentioned at the outset, the bipartisan infrastructure law, the bipartisan infrastructure law basically equals change when it comes to grant programs. Instead of just focusing on infra and raise grants, we're going to have more than a dozen competitive highway grant programs to consider. Not only that, but the new law opens the door to cities and counties to be direct grant recipients, which across the nation creates about 60,000 new potential partners for USDOT, and also 60,000 new competitors for these grants for states like Kentucky. Some of the new grant programs that, as we look across the spectrum of that dozen or more programs that pique our interest, some of those are, in addition to the continuation of infra and raise, we're looking at the National Infrastructure Project Assistance for mega projects. Obviously, we've got a little bridge in northern Kentucky that we're hoping will qualify maybe for a grant in that direction. We're also looking at the Rural Surface Transportation Program and looking at projects like the Mountain Parkway to see if there's a way to help fund that project with some of the Rural Surface Transportation Program dollars. We're also looking at the Bridge Investment Program, the Congestion Relief Grant Program. We're looking at PROTECT funds. And what is PROTECT? Well, it's a new federal program. It's promoting resilient operations for transformative, efficient, and cost-saving transportation program. That's what it means. And really what we're talking about there are those sustainability and resiliency arguments that I mentioned earlier. Those are items that the PROTECT funds are going to cover. So we're keenly interested in those as we think about things, Jason, like Panbowl Lake up in Breathitt County. Is there an opportunity there to help us with Panbowl? Also, we're looking at the EV charging infrastructure program as something near and dear to Kentucky. We would love to proceed with plans to implement a fairly robust charging program, and it appears the new law contains significant money to allow us to be able to do that. So we're looking to augment those dollars with some of these grants, if at all possible. There are several other programs, grant programs and pilot projects that we may also apply for, but these were the ones that caught our immediate attention as we looked at this whole spectrum. So as we look ahead, we know that our approach to the federal grant program must change. That is our challenge. Next slide, Susan. So our challenge, we know that our approach to the federal grant program must change. We're going to have a broader spectrum of projects that have to be considered. We're going to have to target the right projects for the individual fund sources. And again, we have to remember that USDOT Federal Highways is going to be looking for criteria or looking at criteria that may be a little bit different from in the past. It won't be just a technical project that we're looking to a technical requirement we're looking to satisfy. There are many other factors that we're going to have to be really robust in justifying in order to be successful in these programs. So we must target the right projects for the fund source. With the more active grant programs, the work to monitor and close those projects are going to be hopefully ever increasing. So to be successful in the new grant arena, our methods for developing applications and pursuing grants must evolve. USDOT is going to expect close attention to safety, innovation, equity, resilience, and modal highlights of our applications. That's what I was just talking about a moment ago. We're going to have to be focused on those things. We're going to have to write our applications differently because these applications have to have focus to these particular issues. We're going to have to learn to write them differently. We're going to have to lobby our projects harder in Washington and elsewhere because we're going to have more competition. I think if Mr. Jeter could say one thing about our process here, it's going to be, the grant process is going to be more competitive than it's ever been. So we're going to have to lobby write our projects, our applications differently, lobby our projects harder, and we have to staff the effort appropriately. The bottom line from this particular slide, I would like for everyone to recognize that Susan and Ron in this new environment, they simply can't do it by themselves. And so we're going to have to figure out a new path forward there. Next slide, Susan. So how do we get there? For starters, we created a federal grants working group. And this working group was given a charge to ferret out the issues associated with the new federal grant process and figure out a path forward. Susan Oatman is that working group lead appropriately. Working group members, we brought in a number of representatives from this group right here. We have Amanda Spencer, who is a former director of the Division of Planning, has great insight into a lot of issues related to the types of activities these grants will cover. We also have Stephen DeWitt, Beth Neiman, and Dave Heil on this federal grants working group. So excited about that group. They've been working hard. They've rolled up their sleeves and dived in. Thus far, the accomplishments to date, they've conducted an in-depth review of the, of the IIJA. They've identified the grant program eligibilities, which was no small task. They've developed a grants matrix for ease of reference. If you know that you have a particular type of activity and you want to see if it's eligible for one of these varying types of grants, this matrix gives you the ability to take what you know into the grant matrix and figure out which grant would suit that best. This group has also developed a form for recommended grant projects and actually shared this with the districts a couple of weeks ago, hoping to get feedback because the processes are getting underway. We expect the RAISE grant process, for instance, to begin perhaps as early as February. So there's a lot of work that's already been done. And then this group has kept the Department of Highways and KYTC leadership up to date, up to date on all of its findings and activities. And I just want to stress right here for the team, or for this team, the working group has really worked hard. We only created this group maybe 6 weeks ago, and for them to have done as much work as they've done this quickly has been phenomenal. So we are absolutely pleased with the work that has been produced so far. We also have an oversight team that we've identified. That oversight team is composed of Secretary Gray, Jamie Emmons, James Ballinger, Ron Rigney, John Moore, and Mikhail Pelfrey, and me. And our role is to serve as a steering team to help direct these working group activities. Okay, Susan, next page, please. So how will things play out in 2022 as we engage the federal grant process? That's the big question. One of the things that we feel certain about is that program management, the Division of Program Management, will continue to lead the KYTC coordination effort with federal highways and USDOT. Because there are more participants and more categories now, we fully expect more Kentucky grant activity than ever before. I think that's a reasonable expectation for this coming year. Third thing, KYTC is in a new role as both the applicant for our projects and the interpreter for local governments as they consider their projects. So we're kind of going to be in that middleman role that we're quite used to, frankly. Fourth item here, the best grant projects this time around won't necessarily be the types of projects that have been the best grant projects in the past. There are going to be new requirements, new ways of looking at things. And that's what this working group is trying to figure out. How can we appropriately target our applications to address the needs that USDOT is telling us they're going to be looking for? So as I mentioned earlier, grant writing is going to be taken to a new level this year. Grant selling will be taken to a new level. And unless there's any concern about that, Secretary Gray is already doing this. He has a personal friendship with Secretary Buttigieg at USDOT, and he's prevailed on that relationship a couple of times already. The Secretary, USDOT Secretary's staff is very familiar with Secretary Gray, and we'll be working those relationships. In fact, the Secretary and FHWA Deputy Administrator Pollock are having a conversation here in the next couple of days to talk a little bit about the Brent Spence and other projects, and just trying to make sure that, that we're all on the same page in terms of the level of expectations. So grant selling will be taken to a new level for sure. Through it all, KYTC will be available to assist with both the internal and external concerns that arise through the grant process. As it relates to local grant requests or grant applications and so forth, we can provide assistance upon request and wherever necessary. So we're not looking to be authoritarian in this regard at all. What we're looking to do is to be a resource and be available upon request for whatever advice we can provide to local governments. You know, as we look at our entire federal program, again, the federal formula funds are going to be the cornerstone on which we build our federal transportation programs without a doubt. But these grant programs have great potential to bring significant resources to us in addition to those formula funds. And so we're looking at the Brent Spence Bridge as an example that I will mention. It was used as a poster child for many of these grant programs as they were being developed as a potential opportunity there. And so as we look forward, obviously it's in our best interest to put together the best possible grant application we can for the Brent Spence, addressing fully those requirements that FHWA and USDOT are putting in front of us. So much to be done here. This promises to be an exciting year as the grant programs get spun up by USDOT and responded to by a chorus of state and local actors, including us. And it should be fun. You know, I think looking forward to it, there's going to be a lot of work involved, but trying to figure out those projects that can be successful for us is going to be huge. So Jacob, I've thrown a lot at your team here this morning. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on with the program. I would just simply say that there is change coming to the way that we're handling the federal grant side of the equation. And I'm sure that somewhere in all of that, there was a question or two that someone may have. So thought I would wrap up here by just giving you all the opportunity to ask any questions of me, and certainly anyone else on this call who may be able to help answer. So any thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Secretary. It shows the importance of this to the cabinet for sure, if you're taking the time to speak to us directly about it. So thanks for your time sharing that message with us. And I had one chat in the chat box from Pam Drack is asking if federal grants work group would be open to sharing the matrix and draft application with the MPOs.
Yes, absolutely. We're doing this internally initially to help with our understanding, but absolutely the work that we do to understand this USDOT grant process is something that that we will be happy to share. We want to be sure that we've covered the bases appropriately and have the right information with many of these programs unfolding. It's you know, it's one of those things where we're just trying to get our arms around it, and we'll be happy to share the information as it evolves. You may see in time that you see information that says draft on something, but if it's guidance that will help, Pam, we're more than happy to share that. And we realize that, you know, the multiple folks across the United States that now have opportunity to be direct recipients is so much greater. And we want to facilitate the process where we can, help where we're needed. But then also we're going to be, you know, we're going to be competing with you too. So we're going to, you know, we're going to do our best to put our best foot forward. So I hope that that's helpful.
Yeah, and okay, yeah, I think I answered the question. Steve here, Steve DeWitt and Beth Neiman are in the room with me today. She said Steve was saying we'll probably send that out through Thomas Witt and Jason Blackburn and myself to the ads, districts, and MPOs. It's interesting. It's interesting listening to you talk about the lobbying effort. You know, with all the competition and stuff. It's a neat challenge in my mind to the planning group. You know, this group especially because I was on the construction end for several years where I didn't really see the front 10 years of the process. You know, but the planners are on the front end, so. If there's anything, you know, public-private partnerships, I'm trying to think of the applications. Are they sometimes KYTC has to apply to them, sometimes the local agencies can. I guess there's a pretty good mix in this, I guess.
Yeah, it's Jacob. This is going to be. I mean, I would draw everyone's attention back to the individual grant programs, and it's where the working group started. They went in and begin to look at each grant program and the requirements associated with it. And through those requirements, you can get a glimpse of what a successful application might look like. And as I was saying earlier, you know, the traditional major interstate widening projects of the past may not be the most successful projects going forward. I think they're going to need to be more there's going to need to be more thought about community impacts, resilience, sustainability, all of those characteristics that I mentioned, innovation, ensuring access for all users. I mean, these are elements that to me are right up the alley of our planning professionals across this state in particular, but across the country as well. And so I think you're going to see a whole new level of grant application occur, and our grant writing simply has to rise to that occasion. We can't assume that we can submit anything and win. We're going to have to submit a quality project and a quality application to win. So you're absolutely right.
Cool.
Funding's on the front end. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, that's cool. Hopefully the planners, we can help with that project flow. It'd be a good testament to the team.
Yes.
Let's see this thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you are already, if you notice that group of people that is helping Susan in the grants working group, I mean, you're talking about our best or some of our best planning folks, you know, brought together to brainstorm a lot of these issues. So, you know, we're trying to take advantage of you guys. Yeah,
cool. Let's see. There's a couple chat box comments here. One's from Rochelle Ellis, FHWA. She says, a reminder, Kentucky Federal Lands Access Program call for projects closed on 2/1/22 with $5.5 million available for programming. And then also the IIJA BIL has removed the 20% match requirement for FLAP. Smiley face. So, okay, so let's see. There's another one from Chris Avila, Lexington MPO. There's concern about a significant increase in applicants that have little experience or zero experience with federal funds and a greater problem with projects languishing. Beyond the efforts that the cabinet already undertakes with local government, has anything else been identified to help reduce this potential problem?
Well, and Jacob, that comment is directly in line with comments we've heard from every state in the union. I mean, it's we have, and I think Federal Highways would agree with this, with the potential for 60,000 new applicants across the country. Most states are saying to Federal Highways, in fact, I know this is happening at the top levels, where the states are basically saying, look, we have relationships already established with local governments. Use us in the best possible way to help local governments understand the programs and come up with quality projects. But that also, it creates some angst potentially for us as we have potentially more projects trying to evolve. So this whole thing is something that we're going to have to work very closely with Federal Highways to figure out the best path forward for all of us. And I think I think the coordination effort, one of the reasons that we talked about being available upon request and as needed is because we do think that there are things we can help local governments with if they choose to apply for a direct grant. But we also, we can't staff up so that we are a direct conduit for every conceivable question that they may have. So, I mean, there's a lot of learning that's going to have to go on up and down this process. And it's incumbent on local governments to realize and recognize that applying for a grant doesn't end if you get somebody to write you a successful grant application, that there is a whole process that follows after that, that you have to be incredibly ready to step up and deliver on. So it's one of those things that I think we're going to see a lot of success stories in the days ahead with these grants in this new program, and we may find a few stories that aren't that successful because people didn't realize quite what they were getting into, and we just we want to help where we can, but we can't stand behind every request that that doesn't come from KYTC. I mean, we'll help where we can. It's the bottom line.
Okay, yeah, appreciate your feedback there. And I guess one last comment, it's 9:47. Last comment probably is from Shane McKenzie. And she's asking, do you see collaborative grant applications being an opportunity in such a competitive environment? I guess that's grants across programs.
Yes, I do. And I don't know what those look like exactly just yet, but I think as I mentioned earlier, the projects of the past aren't necessarily going to be the best projects in the future. So we've got a lot of work to do to figure out what those best projects are. And we may determine, for instance, that some of our best projects lie in MPO areas. And so it may be something where we're working closely with the MPO or the local government to pursue a project that's of mutual interest, and don't know exactly what that is yet or what that might be, but it's conceivable that given the highly competitive nature of these grants, that collaboration and cooperation with our local partners could become even more enhanced in this environment.
Okay, yeah, guys, let's see if anybody else has any chats and things. You can put them in the chat box or send me an email, and I'll try to get it to the working group, that kind of stuff. So it's good to know that we've got a system in place. Sounds like you guys are on top of it. So it'll be interesting to see how we fare across the country. And let's see, this thing it was just passed last year, right? Or pretty recent.
Right.
And how long is it open? I guess, does it just go on till infinity until somebody changes it?
Yes. Well, basically, you're absolutely right. But it was just the IIJA was just passed this immediate past year. I think it cleared Congress. I don't remember the exact date, but I think in early November, somewhere along in there. And but it was first published back in the summer as Congress sort of zeroed in on the program they wanted to pursue. So we've had some opportunity to review some things, and we brought this working team together in order to create a plan going forward. And fortunately, everything passed, everything's been enacted. It'll stay in place through, I think, 2025, 2026. So we've got an opportunity here to work within that framework and do good things.
Okay, great job speaking. Thanks for speaking with us today. And you're welcome to stay on here. Obviously, I know you're a busy man, so stay on as long as you want. And we'll continue on. The next item on this agenda is for CDAT training. So we're starting to get into a little more technical side. If you want to listen to some of that, Deputy Secretary.
Thank you, Jacob. Take care.
Yeah, see you. Okay, so let's see the next speaker. We're still pretty close to on schedule. It's 9:50, a few minutes back. Let's see, Eric Green is from the University of Kentucky, and he's got his PhD in civil engineering from UK. He's the program manager of traffic and safety at the Kentucky Transportation Center and adjunct faculty with the Department of Civil Engineering. And he's a licensed PE in the state of Kentucky and has his GIS professional certification and is a roadway safety professional. So with that being said, Eric Green, are you on here?
I am, Jake.
Yeah, welcome. This topic is the crash. What does this stand for, Steve? Crash data access tool. Okay, so the CDAT tool. Eric will be talking about kind of what this is and the information that's out there to kind of help their traffic engineering studies and things. So take it away, Eric.
All right, well, thank you. I'm gonna adjust my screen sharing here. Does that look okay, Jacob?
Yeah, I can see you good.
Okay. Sometimes I have trouble sharing on this screen. So yeah, it does. It originally stood for the crash data access tool, but after the first year of development, we scratched the access and changed it to analysis. So this tool that I'm going to discuss is a web-based tool that we put together at the center for mostly for the cabinet's use, but also consultants and others, and I hope MPOs, to basically replace the critical rate factor type of safety analysis. Many of you are probably familiar with CRFs. That was the way of doing safety analysis. It was a way to prioritize safety improvements, but we've found over the years, and with the advent of the Highway Safety Manual, there are better methods for this, and that's what CDAT aims to try to enable others to use those tools. So some of the other aspects of CDAT was a big component of it is it integrates crash and roadway data. There's a lot of beneficial information in the HIS database about the roadway that helps inform safety. So linking those two together is a key component of this. We have kind of an advanced crash, we call them flags, but they're basically types of crashes that many times, if you're using other crash query tools, you have to grab several codes from different areas in the crash database to uncover different crash types. And we simplify that by just putting yes, no fields in and do all that kind of on the back end. As I mentioned, we're emphasizing the highway safety manuals, methodologies, which are a lot more science-based than the traditional methods that we've used. And keep in mind, we were one of the biggest proponents of CMFs many years ago, because that was kind of the best practice for safety analysis. But of course, as we learn more, and thanks to TRB and other institutions like that, we've advanced that methodology. CDAT also allows you to compare a route that you're looking at or an intersection to similar roadways, and it gives you kind of an idea of how your section is performing compared to others. And I'll say it's different than KY-OPS, the Kentucky State Police crash tool, and Hy-V, the tool that I'm very fond of, that Ed Harding has developed for the cabinet. This is a different tool. It does some similar things to those tools, but it really takes a detour and goes a different direction, particularly with the Highway Safety Manual methodology. So it's not a replacement for either of those tools. It's just another tool in the toolbox. We do use CDAT in kind of a once a year update, and that's one of the big distinctions from Hy-V is we update it once a year based on the crash data for that year. So if you're looking for live real-time crashes, these other tools will be better. However, with CDAT, we want to take a snapshot of the roadway and the crash data at a given time of the year and use that, so we can always go back and look at it again without it being a moving target and changing. So this is on purpose. And then the last thing, and luckily it was a piece that got added during the second year of development with the tool, is a mapping component, which really helps with some of the things I'll show you about improving the segmentation of the route that you're looking at, and I'll talk about in a moment. So it's crashtool.uky.edu for the time being. You go to the site and you can register for account, and basically that kicks off an email to me and to Jared Stanley saying, hey, this person wants to use the tool. Do they have access? And if you do have access, you can get immediate use. Once we get the email, we can change you to one of 3 levels. Anonymous users don't have access to CDAT. We have a basic user, and these are 2 different levels of MOU status. And the key distinction here is whether or not you have access to the crash narratives. And if you do, you would get the advanced access. So this is not up to me. This is Transportation Cabinet, and particularly Jared Stanley. So just registering for account kicks off an email that Jared and I will discuss, and he'll let me know. He'll either let you know how to get access if it's warranted, or he'll let me know what level you have. There are 2 modes. There's actually a 3rd mode right now, but it's related to a quality control project we're working on. So it really doesn't have application with this group. But there's a query mode, which I'll demo today, where you can put in a county, a route, a mile point range, and you can perform safety analysis on that piece. Another version of it is the import mode, where you can upload a CSV file with county route and mile point ranges, and it'll perform kind of a default analysis on the segments in the file that you upload. I want to emphasize that the query mode is really where you're gonna learn the tool and help improve the analysis. The import mode would be a method if you've already kind of mastered the segmentation, as I'll call it, and really learned how that affects your safety analysis, because otherwise you're going in pretty blind. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So here's the top of the page where you have a county selection box, and then all the routes in that county are available to choose from, and you can filter it by prefix, and then you can put in a specific mile point range. In this case, you have the minimum, the maximum mile points, but you can filter down from there. Once you settle on a mile point range, you get a table that represents the basic HIS information along that route, and then a map showing the starting and ending point. And this is actually all using the cabinet's ArcGIS Online web services and mapping it based on mile point. So here's your first kind of view of how the roadway varies from start to finish, and that's something we call homogeneity. So it's how similar is the roadway from start to finish. You really want to shrink down your route so that you're not making major changes from start to finish. And I'll show you how that really impact the safety analysis. You can choose from different crash severities and various crash flags, as I discussed before. Although this is really more used with caution, because the highway safety manual side of the analysis is really focused on generally all crashes, not a specific subset. So if you were to use this, you'd probably just be doing it for the crash query component, and not the highway safety manual methodologies. So again, there's a big emphasis on the segmentation. We want the route to be very similar from start to end. So this first section shows you the HIS data, and it breaks it down by mileage, so that you can see, are we varying quite a bit with lane and shoulder widths or median types? Are we changing from rural to urban? Those kind of changes are really going to impact the safety analysis. So you basically want those to be very similar. We also separately pull out intersection data. Intersections are analyzed in a different way. We do use the highway safety manual, but they aren't starting any mile points like segments. So since they're static, we do this once a year. We do the analysis, we calculate what we call an EEC, we match it to similar intersections, and we display that data here. So this analysis is static, and it's already been run, and we're just displaying the intersections that are part of the route. So if you were interested in an intersection, this is the section you can go to, and you can download this table as well. There is a more advanced map where we plot the crashes. We show the starting 90 mile point, as we did earlier, but we also plot the crashes and colorize it by crash severity so that you can see kind of where the crashes are. You can also from here turn on a variety of HIS layers, as well as some of the EEC layers, part of the shift project, where you can just toggle those on and off. I think I heard discussion that there may be a new shapefile for the latest shift analysis that will probably get added to this as well. In fact, this is not our map. This is the cabinet's map service. So once it's added to the EEC map service, it'll automatically show up here. So then finally we get to the segment crash data. This is what you've queried, the start and ending mile point. And there's a particular reason we put this at the bottom. Here you can look at the breakdown of the crash types, and you can click on various tabs and look at that, as well as download the table. But we also put this particularly next to the similar routes section so that you can compare the crash distributions at this segment to similar type roadways. And if we do have a handle on the type of segment that you've queried, and as to say, if it fits one of the kind of standard highway type categories, in this case, a rural 2-lane facility, then you're able to pick an appropriate SPF to match to. And these SPFs are safety performance functions, and this is where the highway safety manual methodologies come in. Here, we're taking the safety performance function of many rural 2-lane roads across the state with similar base conditions, so similar roadway condition, roadway geometry. And we're going to use the crash data at this site and compare it to those facilities. So you have some crash data here and an ADT, as well as a safety performance function parameters. Once you have that selected, you can do what we call advanced analysis, and this is where you get the prediction that the SPF calculates, an EB estimate, which is an estimate of the crashes where we've corrected for something called regression of the mean bias. And then we calculate something called EEC. And EEC is kind of the new critical rate factor. It's a number that represents the excess number of crashes that we see at this site. So a positive number indicates a roadway segment that could benefit from improvement. There's a good probability that that number could be lowered, and the magnitude of that number tells you the level. We also have a kind of a confidence interval associated with that, kind of a plus or minus value that you can use to compare to other sites. And then we bin the crashes into one of 4 LOSSs. It's the level of service of safety. And that really helps you compare this facility to other roadway types that might have higher ADTs. The 1s and 2s are going to be below our safety performance function, and the 3s and 4s are going to be above. So the 3s and 4s are going to be where you can focus your efforts. Now, what I'm showing you here, if some of you are familiar with the EECs, might look at these as kind of ridiculous numbers. A very, very low negative EEC would mean this is the safest route in the state. The issue here is, as I've demonstrated, I just took the start and ending mile point of Kentucky 55 in Adair County, and that varies quite a bit with curvature, entering into more urban areas and so on. So that is not the kind of segment that you would want to typically analyze. And I think if things go well here, I'm going to attempt to, show the crash to alive. So forgive me if we bump into any issues here. Or if Jacob or someone else can confirm that this screen looks okay here.
Yeah, I can see it pretty good. Let's see, I've got a few chat box questions. You want to wait till the end on this or go ahead and ask?
Up to you, up to you.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and ask them to address what's on their mind. It says, Daniel Holker here from Central Office says, are non-mainline, non-ramp routes available in something like 001?
Yeah, no, good question, Daniel. Yeah, one of the first things on the screen here is we've got just the mainline routes, we've got just the ramps, or both. You can switch between those. You can have a 001, which would be like a Vine Street versus a Main Street in Lexington, and those have their own ADTs, so you look at those as mainline. But any ramps will show up in a separate category. Ramp crash data and ADT data can be a little sparse. It really depends on how accurate the crash report is and whether or not there's ADT there. But yeah, for the most part, if it's available, it's there. And you can always edit the ADT and the crashes if you know more about that site. So hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, and then the next one there is for David Souleret, works in the modeling branch. He's saying directional analysis graphs look a little close together. Is it possible to add more separation between categories like collision with an animal, etc.? Or are those pretty fixed probably in the graph?
So I'll show that and address that here in just a moment. Here I'm just putting in Dare County 0 to 5, which is a much smaller range. You can see on the map that this is a kind of a rural part of the county with a lot of curvature, not a whole lot of change otherwise, with regard to the roadway geometrics, but there's quite a bit of curvature. You can click on the map and change the route based on where you click, and then optionally switch the query to that route. So just clicking on the map at a segment that shows Adair County, Kentucky 768 from 0 to 30. And if you wanted to, you could switch to that route. But right now we're staying with Adair County, Kentucky 55. So here you've got severity and the crash types. We've got videos that go into great detail of all these options that you can watch. And David, I see you like the point and click. That's definitely thanks to Jill Asher, who pushed for maps early on in this development, and thanks to the cabinet for letting us use their web services. Actually, I plan to demo that map functionality at our GIST. It's an ASHTO conference in April, and since it uses a lot of the ArcGIS Online, I plan to demo that in April for anyone that does GIST with ASHTO. So here you've got the roadway data information. Not a whole lot of change in the roadway, but we do have quite a bit of curvature that will affect the SPF analysis a little bit, but it is a little forgiving. So you can, I think you could be pretty safe with that. The intersection data along that, basically it shows that how many crashes happened at intersections and where the intersections are, and even with the minor routes in their data shown here. And again, the AECs are shown. So it basically gives you an idea of, are there any dangerous intersections in the area? And I am showing the crash data by intersections in the same graphs that David was commenting on. And if you click on the title of any of the graphs, it'll switch between a chart, either a pie chart or a bar chart, or it'll show you a table of the chart. So if you are having trouble picking out what's in there, you can click on the title, and in a moment, a table will pop up for that chart data, just giving you a better breakdown. So I hope that answers your question, David, to get a better view of that. And we do have two types of directional analysis: the standard directional analysis, and then some groups that we've created that kind of bin them together, because it's a lot of data. And you optionally download the data as well. Here's a map showing where the crashes are occurring. You can use this to shrink down your segment if needed. You can look at the severity of those crashes. Again, you can look at the EECs statewide and on nearby routes, as well as different HIS information, just by toggling the map there. Then finally, we get to our segment crashes, and right below that, we've got similar segments. So these are all 2-lane, 10-foot lane, 4-foot shoulders that are rural without a median across the state. And you can just compare the two together. So probably the most important aspect of this is what we call a segmentation score. This is telling you how different your route is along from start to finish. The reason we've got a low score of 59% is because of the curvature. Again, curvature can be a little forgiving for this segmentation. You may find that curves that you want to kind of focus on smaller segments or split it up into kind of the tangents and the curves. But this is where you really want to be careful selecting. This would be okay. I'd be pretty confident with this. But really just pay attention to what the route looks like from start to finish, and what SPF we're going to use. When you click that, it'll say, okay, I'm looking for rural 2-lane roads. It will attempt to pick from a list of available SPFs. I did notice during setting up for this demo, something's messed up with a selection tool. It should be checking this by default, rural 2-lane. I'm not sure why it's not. I must have messed something up in the last update. So I'm going to look at that, but you can manually select it. And you can see the impact of picking a different model. If you picked a urban multi-lane divided, you could see the impact that would have on your safety score, which would be an interesting way to kind of notice the importance of this selection. We're doing all crashes. There are very few crashes if the segment. Here are SPF parameters in our ADT. You can optionally add adjustment factors for the curvature. That gets a little more advanced. It's not something I expect most users to do. But if you do want to adjust for some of the curves in this segment, it can really help improve your analysis. You do the advanced analysis. It takes everything you've selected and it goes through and it calculates those 5 parameters I discussed before: crash prediction, the EB estimate, which controls adjusts for regression of the mean, your EEC, again, that's that number that you can kind of use as your safety score, and then a plus or minus to get an idea of the confidence, and then your level of service of safety score. So that's kind of the fast version. I think I'm supposed to finish at 10:15, so I can handle more questions or point things out specifically if folks had interest in that.
Yeah, appreciate your time going over this tool. And one of the reasons we ended up asked you to speak today was I guess we used to use CRFs, but like you said, with TRB and all that advancements, I guess this is the tool that is probably the main tool that calculates EECs, right? The excess expected crashes.
It certainly is the most accessible way to the EECs. We do highway safety manual analysis for the cabinet for the Highway Safety Improvement Program, as well as the SHIFT program. Those we kind of do in bulk, where we'll take a huge set of network, either intersections or roadway segments, and perform the analysis and get the EECs. This is more for you to do specific sites and not necessarily statewide. We haven't really tested how many sites you can upload using the import tool, but I would use it for smaller batches. If you do have the desire to do like an entire MPO area, we could probably run the analysis for you using the tools we have for that. Yeah.
Okay, and Thomas Witt's asking in the chat box, it said, did you say you're getting away from CMFs? And if so, what do you recommend instead to evaluate effectiveness of potential improvements?
So I think I would recommend using EECs in the same way we used CMFs. So you can, from a network screening perspective, you can take, a set of routes in your area, in your district, and often with the Highway Safety Improvement Program, we'll take a segment of, a set of segments in a district, and we'll sort them by the EEC value, descending, and the ones with the highest EECs, similar to the highest CMFs, give you an idea of which ones you should prioritize improvements for. And again, you can do that for a specific crash type. We do with high friction surface treatment. We look at wet run off the road crashes. The cable barrier program, we look at median crossover crashes and develop SPFs for them. So you wouldn't necessarily use this tool for that. That would be something that we typically do. But again, anything you did with CMFs, you can swap in this EEC metric. And the EEC gives you kind of a better idea, I think, of the magnitude of that. If you have a EEC of 100 versus an EEC of 10, that can tell you, the magnitude of the impact you might have. But then you'd want to couple that with some kind of benefit cost, where if it costs, $500,000 to lower that 100 by, maybe 20%, but yet, just some signs and some markings can lower that 10, you might have, a better way of comparing those. I hope that helps.
Okay, and then let's see, what does CMF stand for people like me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I read that as critical rate factor, Thomas. My bad. No, we're getting away from critical rate factors, CRFs.
Right.
That's the way I read your question.
Oh, yeah. No, maybe I just misheard you. I thought I heard you say you were getting away from CMFs. So, okay, it makes more sense now.
Yeah, no, and
CMFs are still recommended.
yes, and CMFs, and cut me off at any point, Jacob. I know I passed the time. CMFs are used in two ways now. We use CMFs at the site level to adjust for an improvement that you might have, widening the shoulder, let's say, and you would go find a CMF from the CMF clearinghouse to see what that effect would be. Whereas we also use AFs, adjustment factors, which are very similar at the SPF level, to adjust that if you have 10-foot lanes in your model, but the site actually has 8-foot lanes, you can use an adjustment factor to shrink it down. And thank you, Ryan. Yes, it's crash modification factor.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and let's see, Steve and Beth are in the room here. We're getting away from CRF to use EEC. So this tool helps us get the EECs for like DNA studies or different MPO related things. We're trying to encourage EECs, is my understanding. Okay, so see, it's 10:18. Thanks a lot, Eric. If anybody else has any questions for Eric, put them in the chat box or send me an email or something. I'll make sure they get to him and get you some feedback. But yeah, appreciate your time, Eric.
And I do apologize. I have to run to class. So please email me any questions, and I'm happy to address them that way.
Yeah, go ahead. Good luck with your lecture.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, let's see. It's 10, so 18 now. So let's go ahead and take our break. Be back at 10:30. We'll give out, talk about LRSTP when we get back in here at 10:30, and give out some awards for that survey that we just did. So I'll see you back here at 10:30, guys.
This is Josh, your AT&T operator. Is this call still going on?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. because no one else is in talk mode. So I'll do that so that it does not come out to us.
Yeah, it's we're just taking a break for about 10 more minutes, and then we'll be on here till probably about noon today.
Okay, perfect. All right, have a great call.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. Hey guys, welcome back. Let me stop sharing my screen here. And I noticed over the break, I missed a question from Mr. Graham at FHWA. It says, he was trying to ask Eric this before he took off. Does your analysis tool allow for an examination of public roads which traverse federal land management areas such as U.S. U.S. Route 68, the land between the lakes, and U.S. Route 25 east at NPS Cumberland Gap National Historic Park. So, Mr. Graham, let's see if you're on here. I'll send that to Eric and get you a reply back. But I'm assuming that it does. But if it doesn't, Eric will be able to give you a good tool to find it.
Well, thank you, Jacob. I guess it's kind of a general question because we've seen that when you have even public roadways inside the boundaries of federal land management agency units, whether it's a national park or national forest or whatever, there sometimes can be kind of different agencies involved in responding to accidents and creating the records. So it's always good to see another useful tool like this that would be of assistance if one of those particular units said, well, let's take a look at how we're doing. Do we have any crash hotspots compared to locations just a few miles away? If we do, let's see what we can do to take the appropriate corrective actions to eliminate that problem area.
Yeah, that's a good point with the different agencies, recording if it all gets to the same database kind of deal. So, yeah, I'll forward that on to Eric and see. I'll try to make a note of that too in the email. I'll copy you on it.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Let's see. Yeah, welcome back, everybody. I had the welcome screen up there about speakers mute your mic. When it's time for you to speak, just unmute and that kind of thing. The first presentation after the break here will be on the LSTP status. We've been doing that for what now, Patty? Probably at least half a year, 7, 8 months maybe now. But Patty, let me introduce Patty, and then Patty will talk about the LSTP update, kind of where we're at today with the survey and all that kind of stuff. So Patty is working for Michael Baker International. Now, she used to be the chief district engineer in District 4 and the state highway engineer for us. She's got over 30 years experience in civil engineering. Right now she's working out of Louisville, for the Louisville office, Michael Baker International. And when she was with us, she oversaw 4,000 employees, nearly $1 billion of maintenance construction work a year, and was responsible for delivering projects, including the Kentucky Highway Plan. So that's one kind of cool thing about Patty is she's seen the construction and the planning and the design and all that big picture. So Patty's got a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from UK. She was Young Engineer of the Year in 2011. And she lives in Litchfield with her husband, Jerry, and 2 married daughters, Dawn and Tara, and an amazing grandson, Keller. So Patty, with that, I know we've given this update a couple different places. We'll do it again tomorrow. But this will be kind of an abbreviated version for this group.
Right. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and share my screen if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Can you see our survey results?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, great. So my plan, I just, first of all, want to thank this group. Guys, you all were a huge part, if not the biggest part of the success in reaching more than 8,000 participants in this survey. Like I said, we were very pleased with the results that we got. And first of all, just want to thank you all for that. I think at the end, Jacob and I plan to kind of announce the different kind of winners with that $100 challenge that we had threw out last time when we met with this group. But again, thank you all. So this first page here is just a quick summary or a good snapshot basically of the overall responses. So we wanted to have just kind of a one pager if anybody asked. to show that, this first page is it. So as I mentioned, we had a great response. We were actually told by the MetroQuest people that own the subscription that KYTC uses, that we were in the top 5 of all statewide plan surveys that they've created in MetroQuest. And that included states that had larger populations than we do here in Kentucky. So that was great to hear from us. So like I said, some of the things that we had asked in the survey and these bubbles here across the center show those percentages. We wanted to know who we were talking to and what was important to them. So in talking about, the travel, how you get around, of course, we expected that the majority of the percentage was going to drive. They were allowed to give multiple answers. So we did have a great percent of bicyclists and those pedestrians as well. But like I said, we wanted to make sure we know who we're talking with and getting input from on the priorities. It was good to see that, the public does think that, making sure we maintain our roads and bridges are very important, as well as making our roads safer and reducing congestion to the best of our abilities. And looking at all the other modes and making sure that we incorporate all the needs that are there throughout all of our transportation system. You can see that they want more options for those bicyclists and pedestrians, as well as additional options with rail and passenger travel through ports and airports. So like I said, that no surprise, but it's good to see, that there are those other advocates for the various modes of transportation. And I know you all work with them. And then also, as Jacob mentioned, we're getting an opportunity to go to the KBT conference and interact with those. And we'll be doing this presentation to them as well. And then talking about the funding, this one was pretty interesting. Last time, the last cycle in 2013, we heard that government bonds was most important. This time, they're switching to thinking that we want larger percentages of partnerships between the public and private sectors. Makes sense to me. I understand where they're coming from. But also coming in a distant second is still the bonds, as well as tolling. And of course, that's been in the news a lot lately with some of the larger mega projects going on. And then looking at investing, we always like to ask that $100 question, how would you spend the money? And that lines up again with Jacob had on the screen a while ago, kind of like the vision and goals for KYTC, as well as the USDOT Federal Highways performance goals. So it was really important for us that we captured all of these within this survey, and it was even greater to see that it lined up with those things and the shift priorities as well. So that, like I said, they're telling us it's important to take care of those roads, make sure the roads are safe, and deal with congestion as best that we possibly can. This second page is just kind of more of an explanation of what the survey was for, that we wanted to make sure that we reached out into all corners of the state in order to try to get input as much as possible and make sure that they realize their voice is very important in the decision-making for the future of transportation here in Kentucky. We also looked at the demographics, making sure that we understood across the state. We had some targeting efforts that we did over here in this survey process. Some of the things that we did to make sure we tried to reach the underserved populations. We had targeted emails. We had different groups that would go out, had posted some flyers in some areas. We would send out the posters and fact sheets, sent direct emails to all the local officials, the leaders of various agencies, especially those minority groups, and asking for their help to make sure we can gain as much input as possible. And like I said, I think you all were a huge part of our success in making sure that we gathered as much input as we could at this stage of the process to update our long-range plan for Kentucky. Another way that we wanted to kind of show the results was through infographics. So this basically just broke down all of those questions in helping us to understand with the ways that we had to reach out to the public due to COVID, due to the various things going on in our world today. Social media was our primary outreach. We did boosts throughout Facebook and throughout KYTC's methods that they have through Public Affairs. They were a great proponent, as well as Razor, our team on our team for communications. Like I said, email, always word of mouth from a trusted person or colleague always has good response. So that was good to see, and it helps us to line up when we do the next survey that will be included coming this fall as we review the draft of this highway plan, or of this long range plan. As I mentioned, demographics, that was important to find out. We wanted to make sure that we tried to align with the state's demographic diversion. And so we feel like we did good in trying to meet what is represented in the state today. And then we also had other things that kind of told us about the income, education level, and various things of our participants with the survey. This one kind of shows us what was the priorities. We asked specific questions to make sure that we were finding out what preferences or needs that our participants saw out there with our transportation system. You can see that a third of the transportation funds was intended they would like to spend if they had that $100 on the existing roads and bridges, followed by 1/5 of the funds to improve traffic flow and congestion. And similarly, in the project outcomes, you could see that they definitely wanted well-maintained roads and bridges and that improved safety and traffic flow. So like I said, looking at all of the various responses that we got, and taking, if you notice at the bottom of that page, of the over 8,000 participants that went into the survey, completed at least a portion of it, we received over 4,100 comments. So those comments are what we take to help to build the vision, goals, and objectives, and the guiding principles that go into the development of the long range plan. So we have kind of a draft, in taking that input along with the input from the multimodal committee, you all, the statewide planning group, the vision executive committee, and our project team. We've kind of had this word cloud, and I think it's really neat where we heard Deputy Secretary Mike Hancock talking about that grant writing and how USDOT is focused on things such as access for all users and resiliency, sustainability. So those are the same things that we are wanting to ensure that we have throughout the process of updating the long range plan. But also it's really cool to hear that that is the priority when we get this input and we get these comments. So all of these represent the larger and the more bold the word, the more often that we heard it throughout the comments and throughout the input that we've received. So like I said, I think we are right on target with what we feel like it needed to be addressed, as far as, again, meeting the shift categories and making sure we're aligning with that and what KYTC is doing with funding, as well as making sure that we are following those performance goals that are set by USDOT, Federal Highways. So I think, like I said, we're on target. The next few steps that we're going to be doing, we have the scenario planning that I mentioned last time is new to this process. So we are refining those scenarios. We will have 4 that we will take to a group and sit down and meet and do a workshop so that we can make sure that we know what the future looks like, considering our revenue forecast, considering those various scenarios that are possible for Kentucky. And then that will be incorporated into that draft plan that will be coming back to you all in the next meeting. If Jacob wishes, we can provide an update, but I know in the fall, we'll be coming back to you and asking for your assistance again to get involved in review of the draft plan, as well as helping us to disseminate the draft plan and getting comments again from the public. We know it's tougher to get responses from this next phase because it does take some time for people to go through and look through the draft plan and see what's incorporated. But we are going to make it as user-friendly as possible, as well as look at implementation plan that can be used to help keep this plan update alive over the next 8 years until the next one's done. But again, focusing on that target date of 2045 and making our transportation infrastructure the best that we possibly can in Kentucky. So thank you all again. I will stop sharing now. Let's see. So Jake,
Yeah, thanks.
go ahead.
Thanks, Patty.
Go ahead.
See, I got one chat in the chat box from Max Gee in Green River ad. He said a lot of people look like they're college educated on the survey or higher. And he's just asking if it reflects the Commonwealth as a whole.
So yeah, that number has been greatly rising. When we did the demographic report, we were glad to see that the percent with at least a bachelor's or an associate degree has definitely grown in Kentucky. So yeah, I think it's kind of in line, and I was a little surprised by that too, but glad to see.
And then let's see, yeah, David is saying, can we get a copy of the PDF? So yeah, I'll put it on the website, David.
Yes.
With the presentations. So we're recording this, all the presentations today will be recorded. And I'll put them on that website for us to see. Okay, yeah, thanks, Patty, for giving that overview of the survey results. And then let's see, what time is it? It's 10:46. Let's see what time. Yeah, we can probably touch on a few of the winners. Let's see. Should we do it at the end? Are you going to be around till the end of it?
I can, or like I said, it's however you want to do it.
Because it's right now it's 10:46. Let's see, Bernadette has a question as well. Let's see, hold on. Bernadette, what's your question?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you have a plans to, I know the Kentucky Resiliency Working Group is working on a state resiliency improvement plan. Do you have plans to incorporate that into the statewide long-range plan?
Yes, so Jacob and Mikkel and Steve have all kind of kept our team up to speed on where everything was on that. But yeah, that state resiliency, we hope to include it. We're going to be really focused in on the draft plan beginning in April after our scenario workshop. So we're hoping that the timing of several ongoing plans and working groups will allow us to do that. I'm not sure on the timing of that. Do you know, Bernadette? Or I see Ryan popped in, if Ryan might know.
No, but having your deadline will help us probably speed on with the process. So that's
okay.
good.
So yeah, the draft has to be out in the fall. So we have that 30-day review period that's mandatory that we anticipate starting in October. Don't know the exact date in October, but like I said, we'll be we're pulling all of it together now, but we're going to be hitting it hard in April. So trying to get everything, July, August to make sure, because we have to do all those drafts back and forth with Jacob and whoever else he asked to review. So summertime would be kind of almost our drop dead.
Okay, thank you.
No, I appreciate you mentioning it.
Let's see, Patty, we'll probably go ahead and have Ryan and Soup and Talk, but I know I'll be here till the end, obviously.
Okay.
Probably about maybe 5 or 10 till lunch.
I see one hand raised, so yes, but I'll stay on for sure.
Go ahead, Lewis.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, again, very nice presentation. Looks like you've got everything covered fairly well on that. One quick question I had kind of related to that. Do you recall if you got many comments from any of the federal land management agency, either at the unit level across the state, or perhaps some of the regional offices? I know I'd reached out to them and encourage them to kind of participate in this process, given their presence, the amount of visitation, the amount of economic activity that's associated with those different units.
So Lewis, I can't remember any targeted comments that would make me think that was them, but I know with your outreach, and I remember and appreciate that you did that. I am very confident that we did get some survey responses from that group that you reached out to. And as we mentioned before, we will definitely be sending the draft, to the group as well, and probably will ask for your help to do that. So Yeah, I am sure that they responded, but I don't remember any targeted comments, but I could ask Jeff Moore, who was the one who really dove into those individually.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, let's see. Mikhail's saying, sorry, Ryan, we're gonna push it back a few minutes. Mikhail's recommending, let's go ahead and give out the awards, Patty.
Okay.
Or at least
Okay.
read the names off and stuff. That way, if you need to go, you can go.
Well, I will probably hang on and listen, but I might multitask. I'll go ahead and admit.
Okay.
So, okay. So no, real quick, thank you all again. Like I said, our response was overwhelming. We did have like the award winners for the $100 gift card that we had promised, but also we have some honorable mentions. So just to start, Bluegrass ad was the highest there amongst the ads. So we'll be giving these to Jacob, and Jacob will be dispersing them. They will be coming in $25 gift card amounts. So congratulations to Bluegrass ad there. Their top performing counties were Madison, Woodford, and Franklin. And then the FIFCO ad, you all get an honorable mention for going above and beyond for Elliott County. We were amazed at the amount of responses in comparison to the population there for Elliott County. So Elliott and Lawrence both performed well. So we do have a gift card for the FIFCO ad that will be handed out. Among the district offices, District 1 was the winner there with the highest percent among those counties within District 1 for the $100 gift card. If anybody's on from District 1, Chris or anybody, I think you should give a big thanks to Jim Lefevre and the group there at the Purchase ad, because I know that they worked really hard. So congratulations to Chris. And like I said, I think it was a group effort, but very well performed there in District 1. For another, go ahead.
I give a shout out to our public information officer, Keith Todd.
Absolutely.
He did an extraordinary job with Facebook and other things trying to get this out. So that's great to hear.
Good deal. Yes, Keith does a great job on all of it. So absolutely. So, and you beat me to the punch, Chris. So I was going to say that our public affairs staff, we know, had a big hand in it. And one of the ones too that I wanted to give an honorable mention for was Alan Blair there in District 9. So we have a gift card also for him. And Chris, yours is in $25, so you can split it up to you and Keith, or however you all decide. Then looking at the MPOs. So the Louisville MPO, they're out of Kipta, barely beat out the Lexington MPO. I'm talking 0.01%. So that was so close. Really appreciate that. But Louisville MPO is the one with the $100 gift card. Out of Lexington, we have an honorable mention that goes to Alice Hilton and Kenzie Gleason for them going above and beyond with the hard copies that we know that they had taken to Lextran Transit Center and passed out and got them back and scanned to us. So thank you all. Like I said, this was fun. Truly enjoy it. We'll get these gift cards to Jacob and let him hand them out to you all. So thank you all so much for your help, and congratulations to you all too on the success, because it was definitely a team effort.
Yeah, thanks, Betty. And thanks everybody for putting up with all my emails and stuff about the survey, different tips and tricks and things. But it was neat working with the consultant, Patty, on this, and then the Razor Communications so it gives you little nuggets of tips and tricks to use for future surveys. Thanks, Patty.
Thank you all.
I'll try to give Ryan Tinges a few minutes here now for the safe system. Sorry, Ryan. We'll try to fit you in here, and hopefully Supin will have some time as well. But see you, Patty. And if you guys got any more questions about LRSTP, send them in the chat box or email me. I'll make sure Patty gets them. Okay, so let's see. Introducing Ryan. Let me find his bio here. Okay, Ryan Tinges got a short bio. He's been with FHWA since 2005 and has served as the Highway Safety Engineer for the Kentucky Division since 2007. He also manages ITS and research programs for the division office. He and his wife, Brianna, have 4 children and reside in Lexington. So Ryan, thanks for your patience today. Go ahead with 15 minutes, and we'll try to get you and Supin both in before the day's over here for this meeting.
All right,
Can you
thank
hear
you,
me,
Jacob. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, I'm gonna stop my video and just share my screen because I don't want something to mess up when I'm doing this. I've had plenty of computer issues. Can you see my presentation?
Yeah, I can. Good job.
Awesome. There we go. Wonderful. All right, Jacob, again, thank you for the introduction. My name is Ryan Tenchus. I'm the safety engineer for the Kentucky Division, like Jacob mentioned. And I am here to speak to you about the safe system approach, which is a new focus of Federal Highway, the way that we are looking at safety and how we want to move forward with safety programs. So let's get started here. So each day, people are killed and seriously injured on our roadways, Kentucky and everywhere else. Crashes can irreversibly change the course of human lives, touching victims, their families and loved ones, and society as a whole. But death and serious injury do not have to be consequences we live with simply to use our roadway system. Through collective action on the part of all roadway system stakeholders, from system managers and vehicle manufacturers to law enforcement and everyday users, we can move to a safe system approach that first anticipates human mistakes and second keeps the impact energy on the human body at tolerable levels with the goal of eliminating fatal and serious injuries for all road users. The safe system, sorry about that. The computer is having issues over here. Here we go. It's a global movement that has been in place in countries across the globe for more than 30 years. The Federal Highway Administration's top priority is safety, and for this reason, we fully support the vision of zero deaths and serious injuries on the nation's roadway system. While the safe system approach is new to the U.S., it is worth mentioning that the majority of the states that have adopted a zero deaths approach, also known as Towards Zero Deaths, which is what Kentucky is, and more than 50 communities across the U.S. that have adopted Vision Zero's initiatives, such as Louisville, and Lexington is working on their Vision Zero as well, that set a goal of eliminating fatal and serious injuries from the roadway system. Towards Zero Deaths and Vision Zero provide opportunities to adopt the safe system approach, and some states and localities have already adopted the safe system approach, including the state of Kentucky. Little quick overview of my presentation. We're just going to have a quick introduction, and then I'm going to go over the safe system principles, as well as the elements of the safe system, and then go through some conclusion and share some resources available for Federal Highway. Safe system approach, it aims to, as I've mentioned already, to eliminate fatal and serious injuries for all roadway users by accommodating human mistakes and keeping impacts on the human body at tolerable levels. This is the #1 fundamental objective of the safe system approach. What separates the safe system approach from the traditional approach, safety, is the ethical imperative that not even one death is acceptable in our roadway system. The safe system approach is not a new concept. It has existed for more than 30 years, as I mentioned previously, in countries across the globe. Each of the early adopters of the safe system approach shown on this slide, Sweden, Netherlands, Australia, and New Zealand. They've seen marked decreases in traffic fatalities across their roadway systems, each with having at least a 50% reduction in the number of fatalities. During the same period, however, fatalities in the U.S. have only been reduced by about 11%. Safe system approach is how these countries have moved off the plateau of safety to start achieving significant reductions. These examples show promise that by implementing the safe system approach here in the U.S., we may be able to achieve these same meaningful reductions in traffic deaths. The safe system approach, as I've said already, is newer in the U.S., but efforts are underway to implement it more fully into our safety programs and coordinate more closely with our partners. Now, there's already several initiatives already advancing the concept of safe system approach. Several of these have already listed, but while the names differ, the efforts that they are focused on are aligned around a vision of eliminating deaths and serious injuries from our roadway system. Federal Highway collaborates with these organizations, Road to Zero, Towards Zero Deaths, Vision Zero Network, and we fully support the zero deaths goal. This is the same goal that KYTC has and puts forward in their strategic highway safety plan. These initiatives offer ample opportunities to incorporate safe system at the national, state, and local levels. And to date, a number of state and local communities have adopted zero deaths goals and are applying the safe system approach to reach their goals. All right, the graphic on the screen here, it presents an overview of the safe system approach. There's 3 key components that we need to understand for the safe system approach. These are the safe system approach overall, the principles, as well as the elements. Safe system approach shown by the graphic is the broadest term and describes all aspects of the safe system together. First, let's look at the 6 safe system principles. These are on the outside of the ring of the graphic. These are the fundamental beliefs that the approach is built on. They establish the goal of the safe system approach, they acknowledge human limitations, and they set the expectations for how to act. The successful safe system approach weaves together all 6 of these principles. The first of which is that death and serious injury is unacceptable on our roadways. While no crashes are desirable, the safe system approach prioritizes crashes that result in death and serious injury, since no one should experience either of these when they're using our roadway system. The goal is to modify how users, vehicles, transportation infrastructure, and emergency response operate in an effort to reduce the likelihood of crashes happening at all, as well as to reduce their severity when they do actually happen. The second principle is that we as humans, we're not perfect. We make mistakes. People will inevitably make mistakes that can lead to crashes, but we can design and operate the roadway system in a way that will accommodate these mistakes to help avoid death and serious injuries. Now, the next principle is that humans are vulnerable. As the chart shows here in front of you, people have a very limited ability to tolerate crash impacts before death and serious injuries occur. Human tolerance to crash impacts is central to the safe system approach. The management of kinetic energy transfer within survivable limits is important for understanding how to design and operate the road system consistently with the safe system philosophy. Safe system approach focuses not just on managing speeds, but also managing the transfer of kinetic energy. As you can see, the graphic shows that as kinetic energy increases, so too does the potential of serious injury and death. And as you can see from the chart, it doesn't take a particularly high amount of kinetic energy for the potential of serious injury to occur. The next principle is that responsibility is shared. Everyone has a role in the safe system approach. System managers, vehicle manufacturers, law enforcement, post-crash personnel, and system users all have a responsibility to promote safe behavior and ensure that crashes do not lead to fatal or serious injuries. The next principle is that safety is proactive. This is something big that Kentucky is really focused on changing to in the past few years. In addition to crash-based analysis, transportation agencies should use proactive tools to identify and mitigate latent risks in the roadway system, rather than waiting for crashes to occur and reacting afterwards. This process is known as the systemic approach to safety, and it uses crash history, roadway design, and other data to identify patterns in geometric design that lead to certain crash types. System designers then identify appropriate countermeasures to mitigate those crash types, and then these countermeasures are systemically applied at all locations meeting their particular geometric design, irrespective of crash history. And rather than managing risk at certain locations with a traditional approach, a systemic approach takes a broader view and evaluates risk across an entire roadway system, as opposed to spot analysis. The system-based approach acknowledges crashes alone are not always sufficient to determine what countermeasures need to be implemented, particularly on low volume, local and rural roadways where crashes are few and far between, and as well as in many urban areas where there's conflicts between vehicles and vulnerable road users regularly. KYTC employs a systemic approach on certain specific safety improvement types as well as programs within the HSIP. The next principle is that redundancy is critical. Reducing risks requires that all parts of the roadway system are strengthened so that if one fails, people are still protected. An example of redundancy that we have in Kentucky that we see all over the place is the use of rumble strips. These protect people when their own ability to be safe road users is compromised either by being drowsy or distracted or otherwise affected as they're driving. The next step we'll look at the 5 safe system elements, and these are highlighted in the middle ring of the graphic. And these are the conduits through which a safe system approach must be implemented. Making a commitment to zero deaths means you have to address every aspect of crash risks through these 5 elements of the system. These layers of protection and shared responsibility promote a holistic approach as opposed to an individualistic approach to safety across the entire roadway system. And it's important to remember that the safe system approach encompasses the elements of all 4 E's. I think everybody on this call is probably well versed in these: enforcement, education, emergency response, and engineering. It refocuses our efforts on reducing death and serious injuries through accommodating human mistakes, as we've talked about before, as well as reducing impact forces to tolerable levels. So let's look at these elements. First element is safe road users. The safe system approach addresses the safety of all road users. This has become the real focus of safety across the country. We're looking at all road users and not just drivers and not just pedestrians. All users include those who walk, bike, drive, ride transit, and travel by other modes. All these users are considered equal, regardless of how they choose to travel. Each road user has a responsibility to operate to the best of their ability, and the boundaries set by system managers and education and enforcement can help to modulate user behavior as well. Like we talked about before, we're not perfect. We as road users, we make mistakes, but we all need to acknowledge the limits of our capabilities as well. So it is our responsibility to comply with the rules that we have in place to ensure that we act within the limits of the road system's design. System managers and law enforcement can use techniques like traffic or DUI enforcement, speed feedback signs, and education campaigns to promote compliance with these rules. The next element is safe vehicles. Safe vehicles include active safety measures, which help prevent crashes from occurring, such as autonomous emergency braking, as well as passive safety measures, which protect occupants when a crash does occur, like seatbelts and airbags. The next element is safe speeds. We have a quote here on the screen, and as this quote shows, there's a direct linkage between safe speeds and our ability to survive a crash. But simply, humans are unlikely to survive any high-speed crashes. Adjusting our speeds can accommodate human injury tolerances in 3 different ways: by reducing impact forces, providing additional time for drivers to stop, as well as improving visibility. As I just stated, humans are very unlikely to survive a high-speed crash. Therefore, there is a direct relationship between the speed at which a vehicle is traveling and the likelihood of survival for the person being hit. As you can see in the graphic here, 9 out of 10 pedestrians are likely to survive if they're hit by a vehicle traveling at around 20 miles an hour. But that goes down to 1 in 10 pedestrians would likely survive an impact around 60 miles an hour. Therefore, we need to do everything we can to focus on countermeasures that reduce the speed of users on our roadway system. And here's some examples. The examples here on the screen show speed differential between a typical intersection as well as through a safe system intersection like a roundabout. On the left side, you see the typical intersection where the design of the intersection does not necessarily limit the driver's speed. They can go through that intersection without slowing down for curvature or anything else. Whereas on the right side, it shows an intersection with a safe system geometric design where the driver must slow their speed as they proceed around the roundabout. The next element is safe roads. Safe roads are designed and operated to prevent crashes and keep impacts on the human body at tolerable levels. And this is done through avoiding crashes in 3 different ways: separating users in space, which segregates the physical space to provide travelers with a dedicated part to the right-of-way; separating different users in time, which means that we know that you have different types of users that will be using the same space at the same time. But in this way, we give the users the ability to occupy that same physical space, but it creates a safer environment by separating users in time and reducing vehicle interactions with vulnerable road users. And the last way that we avoid crashes is by increasing attentiveness and awareness. This approach seeks to alert users to potential hazards and or the presence of other users. An example would be rumble strips or intersection lighting, or flashing beacons above crosswalks, anything to get attention of other users to vulnerable users or other users in the area. Managing crash kinetic energy, as I've mentioned many times within this presentation, it can be achieved by doing 3 different things: managing speeds, manipulating the mass, looking at the size and the design of vehicles, as well as manipulating crash angles. So we talked about doing different types of intersections, road design that eliminates right angle crashes. For example, the use of roundabouts or mini roundabouts that we're moving towards building here in Kentucky. All these things play a critical role in producing impact forces to human bodies. Safe, as I mentioned, safe roads include all aspects of the roadway system. Each has a role in accommodating human mistakes and injury tolerances to reduce the severity of the crashes that do actually occur. Final element is post-crash care. This is the one that doesn't get a whole lot of attention, but it needs to get more attention. When a person is injured, the injured person relies on emergency first responders to quickly locate them, stabilize their injury, and transport them to medical facilities. The post-crash care in a safe system extends beyond emergency services. It looks at quick response. It encourages quick response and investigation by police and road managers to help ensure crash factors are documented and reported correctly on crash forms. The traffic incidents are cleared so that traffic may flow as safely and quickly as possible. And the justice system can take appropriate action, as well as the risk of future crashes can be mitigated through an appropriate design and program or policy changes. These help inform all of our safety programs. Crash reporting practices such as complete data collection, documentation of road user behavior and infrastructure, and sharing data across agencies or organizations can also help to lead to a greater understanding of the holistic safety landscape, thus lead to improved investments in safety. That's a big focus of Kentucky, sharing crash data across different groups of professionals, trying to make sure that everyone has all the data they need to make informed decisions. Here on the screen, you see how the 5 safe system elements can work together, such that if one part fails, we have other parts that are already in place and they act as redundant systems. The Swiss cheese model, it helps demonstrate this redundancy. Layered safety measures are represented as slices of Swiss cheese, with the holes being the weaknesses in individual parts of the system. The holes represent weakness causing failures or latent condition. When the cheese slices act as successive layers of defenses and the holes are not lined up, a person's protected. But in the right graphic, as you can see, it shows that a failure only results when a hole in each slice of cheese momentarily aligns, permitting a hazard to pass through holes in all the slices. The basic principle is that lapses and weaknesses in one part of the system can occur, but other parts compensate to not allow for that failure to continue. This relates back to the safe system principles that redundancy is critical and responsibility is shared amongst all people. Let's do a quick summary here, comparing the traditional approach to the safe system approach. Traditional approach focuses on preventing crashes, whereas the safe system approach focuses more on preventing death and serious injury crashes. The traditional approach seeks to improve human behavior, whereas the safe system approach focuses on the fact that humans do make mistakes, and we seek to design with those human mistakes and limitations in mind. The traditional approach seeks to control speeding, whereas the safe system approach looks to reduce system kinetic energy instead, reducing the impact energy that's put onto the driver and user's body as they endure a crash. A traditional approach, individuals are responsible, not looking at everybody as a whole together, working together. Whereas a safe system says everyone has a responsibility, everyone needs to be involved in this. The traditional approach is more of a reaction-based crash history investigation, whereas a safe system approach does proactive identification of risks and working to address those risks. On this slide here, it just shows a website that Federal Highway has put out there to give some other safe system materials, as well as talk about Towards Zero Deaths and Vision Zero as well. And if zero is our goal, safe system is how we get there. We all need to work together to do it. And with that, I am done. And let me stop sharing.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
Sure.
I like the icons and things that you guys come up with. I try to pay attention to all that, the little details and things. So the 6 principles seem pretty self-explanatory, but you did a good job enforcing that and encouraging it, and hopefully it takes on. Those other countries, do they have interstate systems? I mean, are we trying to slow down like the interstates or what?
So the interstate, I think, as everybody maybe on this call already knows, the interstates are our safest roadways. They have the fewest number of crashes, fewest number of fatalities, because we're all just going in the same direction. We're all going the same speed. There's not many decisions to be made. Here in Kentucky, We have the most of our issues on rural roadways, low volume and others. But yeah, we wouldn't want to try to slow down the interstates by any means, I don't think. In these other countries, I'm sure that they do have high-speed roadways like ours. But you know, if it's worked in these other countries, might as well try it here. And like I've said, we've already started to do some of these things here in Kentucky. It's already a part of what we do in the SHSP and HSIP as well. So hopefully we can move forward to make it a whole focus of KYTC as a whole and others as well.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing today, Ryan. And you guys saw Ryan's contact info. Does anybody have any questions for Ryan? Bernadette says, great presentation.
Thanks, Bernadette.
I echo that. Let's see if I get any chat remarks or questions. I'll pass them along to you, Ryan. Thanks for
Sounds
your work
good.
on that.
Thanks, Jacob.
Supin, thanks for your patience as well. FHWA, I mean, you guys are all about adaptability, right? Let's see. Let me read Supin's presentation, the last one for the day. Ms. Supin Yodar is with FHWA, travel demand forecasting GIS specialist with the FHWA office in planning. She works at alternate relocation Olympia Fields, Illinois. She's got over 30 years experience in planning, transportation planning, travel demand forecasting, GIS system experience, both consulting world and public sector. Currently, she's the travel demand forecast GIS specialist in the FHWA office of planning. And before that, she worked for Wilbur Smith Associates and principal analyst with Chicago RTA. She was hired by Bechtel as an independent contractor to perform high-speed rail ridership forecasting. So that's interesting in Hong Kong and Taiwan. She received 2 ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineer, Transportation Planning Council's Best Practices Awards in '99 and 2003. So with that being said, welcome, Ms. Yodar, and go ahead and talk about kind of let's see, this is population growth trends, a screening tool for equity. So it'll be interesting to hear what you've got.
Thank you so much, Jacob. Let me share my screen. And given so many participants, I probably should stop sharing the video so the bandwidth will be enough. Okay, share my screen. Let's see. You're able to see my screen, the presentation slide?
Yeah, I can see it good.
Okay, Bernard asked me to present a couple topics. One is analysis of population growth trends and diversity per analysis. Analysis of the 2020 redistricting data. This is the same presentation that I gave to the FHWA leadership team in last September with a focus on a national perspective, not a Kentucky specific. Public Law 94-171, enacted by Congress in 1975, directed U.S. Census Bureau to make small area population counts available to the 50 states in order for them to regional districts for the U.S. Congress and state legislature. Due to COVID-19, the data release was delayed until last August 2021. The redistricting data contains summary statistics on population housing units, total and voting population count, presented by race and by Hispanic and Latino origin. Group quota populations, such as those residents in campus dorms, military base, prisons, are also included. The PL 94-171 files include over 300 variables by census block, the smallest census-defined area. In 2020, the total population in the United States stands at 331.4 million, increased from 2010 to 2020 by 7.4%, adding 22.7 million people. Puerto Rico has had a steep decline of nearly 12%, including Puerto Rico. Total population growth stands at 7.1%. Now we we can see a quick comparison of population size by state. In 2020, with the continued dominance of the Sunbelt states of California, Texas, and Florida, plus the old industrial core states of New York State, Pennsylvania, Illinois, and Ohio. In 2020, Georgia, North Carolina, and Michigan joined these 7 states to have a population exceeding 10 million and more. Moving beyond state population size comparison, this slide highlights where growth has been happening over the last decade. The slide shows the number and percentage change in population in each state from 2010 to 2020. The color theme shows the level of percentage changes. In general, nearly all states gained population except for the 4 states shown in orange. We can see the biggest percentage gains occurred in Pacific Northwest, Mountain State, Texas, and southern states of Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. With respect to number differences, the clear frontrunner is in Texas, with the largest gain of any state, nearly 4 million new residents, followed by Florida and California, with 2 or more million people added. Georgia has gained over 1 million people to become one of the 10 million or more states mentioned before. However, on a county level, the growth pattern comes into a much sharper focus. Nearly 50% of all counties in the US have lost population during the last decade. Population growth is generally concentrated near larger cities. For example, in Texas, the state population added near 4 million people. However, the gains are concentrated in only 111 out of 254 counties, almost exclusively within and near the major metro regions of Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, and Midland. Overall, the US counties in rural areas or with a small population has seen the greatest losses, while the counties with larger metropolitan areas have the greatest growth. The county level population merit pattern, the migration patterns apply to MPO size as well. MPOs that were already big in 2013 grew at a faster rate than those smaller MPOs with population under 200,000. We can see from this slide that most MPOs gain population. However, there are a number of MPOs in the industrial Midwest and Northeastern states that lost population. The largest MPO gainers are in Sunbelt, West Coast, and part of South. Turning to now to the race and ethnicity, this slide shows population growth by race between 2010 and 2020. In Puerto Rico, Hispanic and Latino population accounted for 99% in both the 2010 and 2020 decennial census. To be consistent with a statistic released by the Census Bureau, the following discussion about race and ethnicity will exclude Puerto Rico. With regard to race, white alone remain by far the largest single race group, with over 200 million, accounting for 62% of total US population. It is also the only group to decrease by almost 9%. This is in contrast to all other groups which have seen growth. The smallest percentage increase was observed by the Black population, while the largest percentage gain was in the multiracial group. Here we incorporate race and ethnicity when calculating both rates. This slide treats Hispanic Latino as a distinct group, regardless what race they reported. Again, the white non-Hispanic population shrunk while all remaining growth groups grew. In 2020, Hispanic Latino population was over 62 million, accounting for nearly 19% of total US population. The non-Hispanic white declined far less than shown in the previous slide, from 9% to 3%. This implies Hispanic white population has declined faster than the non-Hispanic white. Similarly, 3 other groups of non-Hispanic multiracial, non-Hispanic other race alone, and non-Hispanic American Indian alone have a growth rate far lower than in the previous slide, as many of these population groups from the previous slide have now shifted to the Hispanic Latino population, which has increased by over 23%. When comparing all the non-white alone population as minorities, when grouping all non-white alone population as minorities, minority population account for 38% or 42% in 2020, depending how we define minority population. One definition is based on race only, and the other takes ethnicity into consideration. The Census Bureau's diversity index is based on both race and ethnicity. This slide also shows larger difference in minority population growth rate. The minority population grew by 49% when defining minority by race alone, and grew by 25% when defining minority by race and ethnicity. The lower minority population growth rate of 25% is mainly because of larger denominators for calculating growth rate when including entire Hispanic Latino population in the minority group. This slide shows the distribution of Black population in 2020. In general, counties with a high concentration of Black residents are mainly in the South and Mid-Atlantic region, with some scattered throughout many larger urban areas. Similarly, this slide shows the distribution of Hispanic Latino population. Areas with many Latino residents tend to be in the West Coast, Southwest, South Florida, and Puerto Rico, with some other cities across the US. This slide shows the distribution of minority population with the race and ethnicity combined. Minorities make up a larger share of residents of many counties across the US. Minorities are concentrated more on the West, the Southwest, South, and Eastern Seaboard. New Mexico, Alaska, and South Dakota have the largest American Indian population. Rural Upper Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, and New England region retain the highest white population. In the 2020 census questionnaire design, the questions for each race were longer and more space provided for respondents to write specific race information. Thus, the Census Bureau has made a significant change in data processing and coding. Therefore, demographers and data users should be careful when comparing decennial census for these race and ethnicity variables. Here, we see the percent growth within specific race when cross-tabulating Hispanic or Latino origin by race. In 2020, when census respondents who self-identify as Hispanic or Latinos were asked to identify their race, the overwhelming majority indicate 2 or more races, followed by American Indians and Alaska natives. Hispanic or white has declined by almost 53%. When non-Hispanics or Latinos were asked to identify their race, the largest increase was some other races alone, followed by 2 or more races. This map shows the distribution of the multiracial population, which is the fastest growing racial group from 2010 and 2020. It is worth mentioning that this multiracial map corresponds very closely with the distribution of Hispanic and Latino population, confirming the previous bar graph data. The Hispanic Latino population reported themselves as 2 or more races. However, the multiracial population accounts for just over 10% of total US population. This map was produced by the Census Bureau. It combines several previous maps into one map. In general, the most prevalent race or ethnic group in a given county is white, even though in aggregate non-Hispanic white alone population declined. Regions with largest Latino dominant population lie in Southwest Texas and Puerto Rico. Blacks in the South and American Indian on their tribal reservation in the Four Corners, Alaska, and upper Midwest states of Dakota and Montana. The only Asian dominant population are in the Bay Area. To summarize, excluding Puerto Rico, the US population has grown by about 7.4% between 2010 and 2020. This population growth is almost entirely concentrated in urban areas, except for some counties in North Dakota, Idaho, and Montana. The largest population growth has happened in those old manufacturing poor counties and in the rural areas. The US has become more diverse as well, with minority population groups growing. In terms of population changes, Hispanic and Latino population has increased the most, adding 11.6 million residents. However, the largest percentage increase are among the multiracial population. This is mainly because of in 2020, larger proportion of Hispanic Latino population report their race as 2 or more races. With respect to metropolitan planning, the share of MPO population has increased from 80% to 82%, and the 50 largest MPO account for nearly 70% of US population increase between 2010 and 2020. The 2020 census data enable us to understand population migration patterns that will have federal funding implications and the population diversity trend that will further the importance of administration's equitable transportation system and mobility justice. And this is my presentation for this topic, and all of this maps has been posted on FHWA HEP public website. I will show you later. So should I, okay, Jacob, should I continue the second presentation, or do you want to go to Q&A?
Let's see, what any comments here? Steve DeWitt says another Wilbur Smith alum. Let's see, does anybody else have any questions about population? To me, it's fascinating, the heat maps. That really helps me a lot with just to visualize. I'm more of a visual learner, I guess, but that's a good presentation on seeing how the populations have changed. So appreciate those summaries. If anybody has any questions on that particular topic, I don't see any in the chat box right now, Supan.
Okay,
But,
let me share.
Yeah, go ahead with the next one.
Next one. Okay. Let me see.
And I'll forward you anything. If anything comes in, I'll forward it to you.
Let me do this. I need to change. Okay. Now let me share this. Oh, so it's not. Let me go. Thank you. No, let me. Yeah.
I saw everybody turned off their camera, when you made that comment about the bandwidth. So let's see if it helps.
Let me see. Okay. All right. Now let me go share my screen. I think I had to share my screen. Now this works. Can you see that?
It looks like it's starting. Yeah, there it is. I see it.
Oh, great. Okay. So I'm going to present you this newly developed FHWA screening tool for equity analysis of projects, also known as STP. Oh, let me do here. So let me just give you a background. The overall objective of the project screening tool is to identify impacts of projects on vulnerable population and to do it easily and with minimal barrier so that FHW divisions, states, MPO can and want to use it. The project was developed under the direction of FHW Associate Administrator Gloria Shepard. Gloria identified several minimum key requirements for us. The tool must address Title VI, environmental justice, limited English proficiency, and other disadvantaged population groups that are identified in Biden's Executive Order 13985. Gloria also said the tool must be simple and accessible to MPO and state DOTs, in addition to FHW field offices. The STP was developed within 4 months timeframe and meets all these requirements. Specifically, STP allow users a rapid screening of project location anywhere in the US, and is designed to have a straightforward user interface permitting users to specify project locations on the map. The STP allow users to specify up to 2 project buffers, and the tool estimates socioeconomic characteristics of the resident population within the project buffer area. The tool generated user-friendly report containing summary of the expenditure population, which can be viewed and downloaded. The STP is an extension of HEP GIS web application. Users can click on project equity analysis to launch the tool. The STP was developed by the Calico Corporation. Here is a STP user interface at the national level. Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico are not currently shown on the map, but users can zoom into these locations. Users can pan and zoom into a specific project location. And users can select existing roadways or draw lines or propose new highways or project locations. The total length of project cannot exceed 25 miles. Users can specify up to 2 distance to the project locations to create project buffer areas. The maximum buffer distance is not to exceed 3 miles. By click on Create Buffer Analysis button, Project Equity Analysis report will open that contains Title VI EJ variables and other socioeconomic variables in a user-friendly PDF report. So here is the list of statistics that are included in a Project Buffer Analysis report. Race, ethnicity, and foreign-born population of Title VI, EJ populations such as minorities, low income, and poverty by race. Limited English proficiency includes the level of English communication and what other language they speak at home. Other population characteristics include gender, age, education attainment, unemployment, veteran, and disability status. The household characteristics include the household structure, housing affordability, vehicle ownership, and number of households with no computer or internet connections. Okay, let me do a demo. I had to stop sharing. Now I have to do share again. Okay. So you can see my screen, all right? The HEP GIS website. Am I correct?
Yeah, I can see that.
Oh, fantastic. So I just want to mention here, you see the 2020 census equity now. So the 2020 census, I present all the maps all are in here. So you can go in to look at your Kentucky specific information, and there's a Title VI and OR variables that in present the STP 2 are shown in here as well. So here you go to project equity STP. So launch the tool. At this point, at the national level, so you see the side on the right is all gray out. You cannot do anything until you zoom in. So let me move to zoom in the Kentucky area. Okay, let me just do it here. You see that when just showing national highways, interstate highways still gray out. But if you zoom in, now you can select all of our area. So you can zoom in. There's a couple options here. You can draw the line, select the highway or draw the line. Let me do select the highway. Okay, I'm going to just do a few of them here. Just to give you, you can zoom in, you can select it here. If you select more here, it's showing the length. If you for some accidentally select wrong, you just right click it and whatever. So, okay. So here is the select highway. Then you can specify the buffer area. The buffer area, as long as within the 3 miles, anyone you can do, you can say 0.1, you know, like a 500 feet, or say 2 miles, whatever. It doesn't matter what decimal. So you say create buffer analysis. The time it depends on the length of the roadway. So here you see that. Let me go here. So that's a select highway. And then here is a 0.5 miles. So usually if you do a project like widening the highways, and then you had the acquisition of the properties, so 500 feet. And here's a 2 mile, the impact area. And in this report, and you see the correspondence in the 2 maps here, then this color pink is correspond to the report. We have 0.1 mile report associated with this one. And then in the bottom, there's exactly the same report that correspond to blue, the 2 miles of graded area. So if you look at it, I'm just give here, it's basically summary of all the statistics in that buffer area. So in a lot of desktop GIS buffer analysis, it had to be done a lot of times by GIS specialists. And now you can go to the website to do this easily. So it tells you the total population. And then let me zoom up a little bit. Now you see the total American Indian population. And I want you to tell you some of the asterisks, meaning because our data here is drawn from 2015. Okay, let me go to the front. You see that the data source is based on American Community Survey 2015 and 2019. Some of those variables, they are not available at the block group level. We are using block group as the smallest geography, but some of the variables are not available at the block group. Then with this aggregated to the block groups. And if you want to know the methodology, you can go on the right side here, help. And in the help, they tell you a detailed methodology of how distribution of census tract, the census block group. So, it's very detailed examples. So just want you to know. Then you also have no Hispanic population, then by gender, by different age group, because we have all kind of age group for different calculations, and employment status and employment rate you can able to calculate. Is actually employment should be this one divided by 52. It's currently our system designed by this 3655. Now education attainment, you can see that 33 and most of people high school and some college. Here is a household size. And household size is very important for calculating poverty rates. And here household structures by household holders in terms of type of household holders. So you can see some of demographic in your project area. And then household type, if those are children, if the children present in those households, how many of them by the household holder type. And here household income. Then here is basically the housing cost, that the rent or mortgage payment, the percentage of your total income. Basically here showing that's another occupied housing unit, occupied total owner or rental occupied. Here is owner occupied. Then the following, this one is showing the cost, the housing cost. Then the poverty by race, and all kind of information, then poverty by age, the children poverty is a kind of people like to know. And also vehicle ownership, the zero car vehicle ownership about 9% within the 500 feet. Then here is foreign-born population. You can see the asterisk how to distribute it, disaggregated, and the English-speaking proficiency, so LEP, and the level of English-speaking. And here's if the household who cannot speak English or other languages they speak at home. So here is some other vulnerable population in terms of veterans, disabilities. It's quite a lot, 19%. Here has a household without computer and with not internet connection. So this is the report. They can clear the buffer and so the other tools is good. You can draw the line. You can draw whatever line you want. Then you create a buffer analysis. So it's a very simple and easy to use. I just want to report that when I did this demo to our office director who does not know too much about data and GIS, and he, after showing him, he can start to do demo to all other people. So it's a very simple use and easy to use. And let me go back. Oh, by the way, the also report, if you want to know their distribution patterns, so you can go in here. So the data here in Title 6, here, this is Title 6 EJ waiver based on the ACS data. And here is O20. So in the next version, we are going to add some census data as well at the block level. So we can summarize some of statistics. The users have choice to select either census, 2020 census, or ACS data. ACS data have far more variables. You have income, poverty, and all kinds of vulnerable populations. So I just let you know. Let me finish my presentation. So another slide. I want to show you this is the one, the last slide. Okay, let me go to, I think this is very important because I think that the purpose of the screen, okay. There are several benefits using the screening tool. The STP tool is a part of implementation of Biden's Executive Order 14008, which called for creation of geospatial climate and economic justice screening tool. The tool enables project development team to evaluate the impact of project while it is still in the early stage. The project screening, pre-screening tool will help agency staff to identify the signs of disadvantaged population and to assess if any vulnerable population are disproportionately affected. The buffer equity analysis report will help rescope the project if necessary and develop alternatives that will minimize potential impact on marginalized population or create new alternatives that have a greater benefit to these disadvantaged communities as called for by the Justice 40. The screening tool can also help the project team to develop a meaningful public engagement plan, such as developing project brochures or survey questionnaires in other languages per limited English proficiency population characteristics. The other benefit is the tool eliminates the use of contractors or other specialized personnel, such as a GIS specialist. The STP is available through the HEP GIS web application, which does not require any software installation or extensive training, given the simplicity of the tool. So that's the finished end of my presentation. I'd love to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, thanks, Supan. Let's see. Yeah, definitely credit to FHWA to your work on this, Ms. Yodar and Bernadette for recommending this topic, kind of helping us all be aware of it. Does anybody have any questions in the chat box? Let's see. Bob Kaler says, excellent tool. Another good name, screening tool for community impact analysis. what comes to my mind is I know that the area development districts do these socioeconomic profiles for like a whole region. Can you do like a shape? I know
Yeah,
you can do
yeah.
line.
That's right. That's right. That's one of the version 2. We are going to include the area, the polygons, and then also specific locations. So for
Okay.
example, you have intermodal facilities or the area statistic. So you can draw the polygons or select the area that then give you a summary report. Yeah, next
Okay.
version.
Let's see, when is that, next year, or is it a couple years out?
I'm hoping by end of this year, but we might have some interim version out this summer, maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm currently working, negotiating with Caliper about, what is due first or what's due the next. We are also planning to add more columns in the report. For example, if you select a project in a certain county, then it will show the county statistic at the next column, then also the metropolitan area and then statewide, so that you can compare. If you say, if this is a poverty rate in this area is, for example, is 15%, but countywide only 10%, then you have to think about this disproportionate impact on those low income people, things like that. So we're going to add more information just to help you for your analysis, but it's a screening tool. So.
And then let's see. I know you mentioned something about the block level. Can they check the data, or like, is there a helpline or something? Like if they see a map, can they download the shapefile or something?
Yeah, I think what we're going to do is not download the shapefile, but it's more download the report in the spreadsheet file, so that you can, you can. The other elements we are going to do also maybe compare the alternatives. So if you have a couple alternatives, they show the differences. So that is also in our task to-do list. So, yeah.
Okay. Yes, Steve, I know, let's see, is Eunice on here? Eunice Holland, I know she does a lot with, I think right now, the area development districts are pulling data from the census, but this tool is kind of doing all that for us. So it's kind of a neat, like socioeconomic reports and things. They look at just one road segment.
Right.
Eunice, are you on here still? She might not still be on here, but
yeah, I'm on here.
Eunice, what do you think about this for socioeconomic profile type information? The NPOs probably use something similar.
Yeah, I would definitely like to look at it further to see if we might be able to use that as a tool. Definitely.
Right. So we'd love to hear your feedbacks so that to further improve. I think the next version, we are currently working on RFP to get a contract in, hopefully starting sometime in February. The improvements.
Okay, and Bob, let's see, when you say community impact analysis, I guess that's do the NPO? I mean, I guess the NPOs use the information. They just have you guys known about the tool already, or is this news to you? Is Bob still on here? So anyway, I'm sure the NPOs now use it.
Well, we have our own definition and we have our own data sets, but yeah, this is a really nice tool. And I didn't mean anything by my statement about changing the name. I know you won't, but it's kind of like well, what I meant by that was it's not given due credit to all the functionality of the tool. It's like Eric Green calling his crash analysis data query tool the fatal crash analysis tool. It does more than just fatal crash analysis. It does all crash analysis. So this doesn't just identify EJ or Title VI communities. It identifies any community and what population there is. And so that's all I meant by that.
No, yeah, that's a good name. So I had to think about that because now we have everybody knows Steve. But it's a hard to change. But we might be, because especially after we expanded the area polygon analysis and other analysis, it might be as good. But that's a good comment. Oh, good questions. But the 2020 census block, I think Jacob is. What we're going to do is we are going to look at 2020 census data, but those data is only limited to race and ethnicity. They don't have the housing units, but other than that, they don't have 2020 census. Not a short form does not have poverty, income, disabled and all kind of other variables that the ACS has. So, but we will edit a small report because I know the Title VI, they prefer to use block level data. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking about our shift process too. So we can download I guess, is the data is available in a report format, like an Excel or something?
Yeah, that's what we are. The next version, that's one of the top priority. Able to users can download right away. Then you can do different segments and then download, compare very easily. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I appreciate your time today. And you kept us back on schedule. You got us back on schedule.
That's good. Thank you all. Thank you all
thanks
for
doing that.
listening.
If anybody comes with any other questions, I'll forward them to you and Bernadette. And,
thank you.
One more comment there.
Yeah, go ahead, Bernadette.
There's one more comment in the chat from Chris.
Is there? Okay, let me read it here. Yeah, you're right. Chris Avila, Lexington MPO, says ACS sometimes has significant margins of error, especially at the block group level.
Yes.
Any way for the tool to estimate margin of error for the selected area?
Yeah, we were debating of that because first of all, the purpose is a pre-screening. It's not replacing NEPA studies. So then the other thing is we think that this tool is more for non-GIS people, people who does not know too much about statistics, everybody can use and look at it. So if we added the margin of error, then our table becomes so many more columns to add it there, especially if we add the county and MSA and statewide. But we'll look into it to see if possible. But it maybe we could have another file if people want to look at the margin of error of that. Yeah, no, since the block group is not that good, but this is a pre-project screening tool. So yeah, good question.
Yeah, thanks, Bernadette, for catching that. Keeping me on track. She keeps me straight sometimes with these meetings, you know.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. But just let Bernadette know that if any questions or feedback.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Okay,
guys, let's see. We're almost done here. I've got the only other thing I've got on the agenda is reading the announcements, and we really don't have any announcements. Just the next meeting is April 20th. And then see the MPO meeting today, 1 to 3, Thomas Whitson, and an email invite for that one to those invited. And then HDOs is 1:30 to 2:30. And personnel updates we just had a few. Steve Ross, like you said, retiring again this month. Cedro Delgado is new to MPO team. Dave Powell, new to the corridor team. Paul Sanders retiring from District 4 as chief. Angela Herndon is new Penrod planner. And Casey Hoskins will be leaving the LCAD at the end of this month. So that's all I've got for that. Mikhail let me know. He's apologized for not attaching the agenda to the calendar invite, but I think I emailed it to everybody for some reason this go around. But I'll try to remember that for the next meetings. If we have it virtual again, you know, I've got to decide. You know, we've got to decide as a committee if we're going to do in person or not, you know, depending on COVID and all that stuff. So it'll be a different dynamic, you know, if we're able to meet in the auditorium here at KYTC, or if it's virtual again. But I'll send out probably another calendar invite regardless, just to save the date, and we'll just go from there. We'll try to come up with some more good topics, and appreciate everybody's time and attention. I sent out the link to the STP material site as well. When Michaela let me know that I attached the agenda, I sent that STP link as well. So thanks again for all your time and attention. I'll stay on here for a few more minutes. We still got a couple minutes till noon. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat box or send me an email. Let me share my contact information here for those that want to email me something. And with that, have a good rest of the day, guys. Stay safe if you're traveling. I think we've got some winter weather coming in on I-64 at the KBT conference tonight in the morning. So, like I say, safe travels if you guys are out traveling. And thanks again for your questions and participation. Have a good one.
Thank you. Good job.
Yeah, thanks, Bernadette. I'll stop recording here as
Thanks,
well.
Jacob. And I sent to you just the update of that survey summary as well as the transportation at a glance, if you want to send it out to the group.
Okay, yeah, we'll do.
All right, thanks.